Hello everyone and welcome to a Replica Airguns Airsoft Revolver tabletop review. And today we're looking at the ASG Dan Wesson 6-inch silver CO2 Airsoft Revolver. Now I have reviewed several of the Dan Wesson revolvers in the past, mainly the BB or the 4.5mm version, so the steel BB versions. So make sure to check out those links. I'll put them in here, links to those videos. I'll have them as annotations here right now and also in the description to this video. I just haven't really had the opportunity to focus on the Airsoft versions, and so I wanted to revisit the Dan Wesson, but in the Airsoft version. So let's get right into some of the specifications. This is an almost all metal design gun, and this is the 6-inch polished metal version, so it's sort of a silver, almost, I wouldn't call it chrome, but more of a polished stainless steel look to it. Now there are several other versions and different finishes. There's a 2.5-inch version, 4-inch, 6-inch and 8-inch version of the Dan Wesson, and again with different finishes. Now the Dan Wesson 6-inch silver airsoft pistol uses 12-gram CO2 cartridges. It shoots 6mm plastic airsoft BBs. It has a 6-round cylinder which holds the shells, which then hold the BBs, and I'll show you that in a bit. It has a smoothbore barrel, weighs about 2.25 pounds, which is 968 grams. Is 11.7 inches in total length, so almost a foot in length. And this gun shoots in traditional revolver, single and double action. It also has a fully adjustable rear sight for windage and elevation with a claimed feet per second rating of 453 FPS. Now I do want to talk a little bit about the red tips of airsoft guns. I've been getting a lot of questions lately. It seems like an overwhelming amount of people are asking the same questions over and over again about the red tips. Are they required on air guns, airsoft guns, what have you? In Canada, the short answer is no. We do not require a red tip on either our pellet, BB, or airsoft guns. The majority of the airsoft and BB guns that we have in Canada, when they're replicas or when they look like the real gun, they're actually classified as unregulated or uncontrolled firearms. Therefore, they don't require a red tip because they're not really considered to be toys. In the United States, airsoft pistols do require red tips. Now, I don't know all of the laws and bylaws and if you have to keep them on at all times, but I do know that they're sold with red tips. And generally speaking, you probably should be keeping them on the guns. Now BB and pellet pistols, so the guns that shoot the steel BBs or lead pellets, do not require red tips in the United States. And probably for the same reason as they're not really considered to be toys. Alright, so this is a loose replica of the Dan Wesson 357 revolver. There are some liberties taken in this gun with shaping and different things. It's not an exact replica, but it does have the Dan Wesson branding and licensing. Now, this gun is made for ASG or action sport games, and it's made in Taiwan. It does come in a rather nice box, just like all the Dan Wesson revolvers. The airsoft boxes typically are the green boxes. Inside the box, I'll just quickly show you. You have your manual, of course. I'm not going to get into that too much, but you do get your speed loader. There's a tool for installing the rail, sight rail. You get your pack of BBs. You also get your 6 shells, which are in the gun right now. Now I'll show you a couple other Dan Wessons here, or at least one other Dan Wesson. This is my Dan Wesson. This is a BB version, so it's a 4-inch. And just want to show you quickly the main difference here. Really, the main difference in these guns is the shells and the barrel. So you can see here our 4.5mm version has a smaller opening for a smaller BB. The 6mm version has a larger opening. Now the 6mm version also has a larger barrel, whereas the 4.5mm has a smaller barrel. So people ask me all the time, non-stop, can I use such and such ammo in such and such gun? You need to use the right ammo for the right gun. You could put a 4.5mm shell in here and shoot a 4.5mm BB, but then it's going to go down a 6mm barrel, which means a lot of the gas and energy is going to blow right on by that BB, and you're not going to get accuracy or power out of it. So really, there's just no point in doing it. So shoot the ammo that your gun is made to shoot. You cannot put airsoft BBs in BB guns, and you cannot put steel BBs in airsoft guns. It's just something you really don't do. It's not the right ammunition for that gun. Alright, so nice. This is the all black. You can get the exact same gun, 6-inch silver, in 4.5mm steel BB. Looks identical. I did want to show you another gun that's rather similar. This is the Umarex 327 TRR8. I have reviewed this gun and the other gun as well, so make sure to check those video links in the description and the annotations. But this is essentially, you'll see, it's really the same gun. It's just dressed up a little bit different, has some different cosmetics, but uses the same shells. And this is the 4.5mm BB version. So this is the Umarex design, and it's a Smith & Wesson sort of takeoff. But performance, how it works, mechanical parts are all very similar for all of these guns. Alright, so at this point we're going to do a quick walk around of the ASG Dan Wesson 6-inch silver CO2 airsoft revolver. Let's take a look at the left side. We have our Dan Wesson branding here. Alright, we have our cylinder rod here. Okay. Now, just wanted to mention, if you notice your gun is fairly tight to get the cylinder in and out, it does loosen up over time. As you're putting it in, just give it a little turn. What's happening here is this part right in here is pressing against the cylinder to create a seal so that you lose less CO2 and you gain more power. So there is going to be a little resistance when you pull the trigger, when you put the cylinder back in. All of that is going to have a little more resistance than if that wasn't there. But it's there for a reason, to allow more power to go to the BB and to lose less CO2 through the cylinder and the barrel opening there. Alright, we'll notice here we have our serial number, beautifully finished. Our ports, our barrel ports up here. Now I've left this on, but this is the Max 2 Joule. It does come on it. You'll notice we have our open by pushing this forward. We're in fire. If you pull it back, you're in safe. You cannot cock the gun in any way. There is CO2 in this gun, so I'm not going to pull the trigger, but it is double and single action. Okay, so double action, single action. Okay, you have your grips. They're sort of a hard plastic. They're not really rubber. Got your Dan Wesson licensing there. You pull your grip back to access your CO2 plastic tab, but it is well hidden. Okay, all metal. Everything you're looking at pretty much is metal, exception of the grips, of course. Metal trigger. Take a look at the right side. So you have some ASG branding, your caliber, your F for the German market, more licensing there, Dan Wesson. More licensing on the barrel. And you'll notice here you have a fully adjustable sight for windage up and elevation. Okay, and you do have a, not a white dot, but an orangey red dot on the front, and that's just your typical sort of post sight notch in the back. You can put a rail on here, and you can attach either a red dot scope or even I guess a magnified optical scope if you want to. You do have a slightly recessed barrel. Not sure if that's exactly the size of a 357, but it's pretty close. There's a lot of realism there. Again, you do. Now I have also noticed people will say that my trigger is loose. There is some looseness to the triggers. They do move around a little bit. That is kind of normal. Some move a little bit more than others. So don't be too worried about that. Now one thing I do want to mention, I've seen this on a few guns. If you look down the top of the gun, and if you notice that your cylinder is not aligned left and right, sometimes it can be a little over to one side to the other, the crane on these guns can get bent. This part here can get bent, which will make the whole cylinder out of alignment. And that can happen if you were to put your gun down and push on it. It'll bend the crane because you're pushing the cylinder out from the gun. So that can happen. If I were to push this really hard, I'd bend the crane. And then none of this will line up. So when you're pulling the trigger, your alignment will be out. And I've had people with problems where they're not able to cock the gun. The cylinder isn't indexing. And just look down here, and if there's an alignment problem, you know your crane has been bent somehow. And that may have been by accident. You may not have even known when it happened. Just give it a little bit of pressure and bend it the other way. Now don't go nuts on it. Just be careful. Do a little bit. Give it a try. Do a little bit more. And give it a try. I've bent them back myself. It's not hard to do. Okay, but that's the only thing I've really seen with these guns, is be aware of that crane getting bent. A lot of time it's just a user error. Okay? I did quickly want to talk about the speed loader a little bit. Essentially you just put them in, I'll just start it over here. Put them in and then push this in and twist it and it locks the shells in. Now there's a little button right there on the inside that when you put the actual shells in the gun, you'll sort of hit this spot and it's going to allow all the shells to come out and into the gun. So it just sort of happens automatically and then they can free fall into the cylinder. So that's how this works. Speed loader is cool. You will need to get extra shells if you are going to really take advantage of the speed loader, because that's the point. You shoot the rounds that are in your gun and then you empty it and put a speed loader in to quickly load it up for your second round of shooting. Alright, so at this point we're going to quickly head outside and do a pre-test so I can give you some feedback on the general performance, shooting performance of this Dan Wesson Airsoft Revolver. We're going to do a little bit of chronograph shooting and target shooting from 20 feet out in a semi-rested position. So let's head quickly outside and see how well this gun performs in my pre-test. Alright, we're all set up for the preliminary pre-test. I've got my Dan Wesson, or my ASG Dan Wesson Airsoft, so 6mm plastic Airsoft BB. And this is the 6-inch silver version. We're going to put 6 rounds through the chronograph, then I'm going to reload. I don't have a speed loader or any extra shells, so I'll have to do it manually. Then I'm going to go back and shoot 6 rounds on the target here. Okay, so we're going to do the first 3 shots in single action, so with the hammer cocked back. And now we're expecting around 450 feet per second as claimed, so let's see what we get. I've heard they shoot even a little hotter. 415. We are using 0.20 gram BBs. 399. One more in single action. So 382. We're going to go double action. 404. 398. And 397. So right around 400. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to reload here. Now, I can't remember if I said it, but these are 0.20 gram BBs, and they work just fine. Alright, so let's get these back in. That's the cool thing about this gun, is it loads up just like a real revolver, which makes it kind of fun. Takes a little time to reload, gives your CO2 a chance to warm up, which is the plus to it. So, alright, we're going to head back now, 20 feet away. Semi-rested position. I will shoot in single action only because this gun does offer both shooting modes, which single action generally gives you a little bit better, more accurate reading, or more accurate shooting placement because the trigger's lighter. So we're just going to shoot again, single action. One more. Seemed pretty good. I pulled a few of those shots, but I think I got most of them. Yeah, looks not bad at all, really. That one I pulled for sure. But most of them were right in the bullseye. This has adjustable sights. You can see here, adjustable sights. So really, very nice accuracy. I'm not sure, we'll just sort of forget about that one for now. All of those are basically in 1.5 inches from 20 feet out. So pretty decent accuracy from this revolver. Alright, let's head inside and finish up this review. Alright, now keep in mind the pre-test that I do is just to give some basic feedback. We will be doing a full field test shooting review for this pistol, so keep posted on that. Make sure to check back for that review. Now this gun out of the box shot right around 400 FPS. It does have a claimed FPS of around 450. Wasn't exactly a warm day today. Wasn't really warm in my house or outside, so the gun wasn't super hot. I would expect to get a little higher FPS on a warm day, but 400 FPS, there's nothing wrong with that. You may even be fine using that in close quarters shooting. Now I was using 0.20 gram BBs, so they were on the lighter side of things, so keep that in mind. 400 FPS, you might get away with using this for more situations than if it were shooting a little bit hotter. Now I was very impressed with the 1.5 inch group that I got. I didn't even need to adjust my sights in any way. And being that this was the first time I shot this gun, and I wasn't really used to the trigger on it or anything, I felt it shot pretty darn good. So let's talk about some of the pros and the cons, and then we'll finish up this review. Now, as with all the Dan Wessons, I love the actual shells that you insert into the gun. It gives the gun the feeling of being a real six-shooter. It's pretty much an all-metal design. There's very little plastic in this gun. There's lots of detail in this revolver. It's very well made. The fit and finish is very good. Now, the power and accuracy combination is excellent, and my experience with the other Dan Wessons is that you will also get a fair amount of shots. And the fact that you have to reload pretty much every 6 shots means that you give the CO2 a chance to warm up, which extends the amount of shots you're going to get using these pistols, so keep that in mind. I like the fact that the Dan Wesson Airsoft Revolver has fully adjustable sights, and here in Canada we're able to get the version without the red tip. That's also a plus for us here in Canada. Again, for my US shoppers, you will get a red tip on the Airsoft version of these guns. Now, you can mount a scope using the included rail, so you can put a red dot or a magnified optical sight if you prefer. And again, it shot really well centered right out of the box. And if for some reason yours isn't bang on for your shooting style, you can adjust it very easily using the windage and elevation adjustments. Again, even though it shot a little bit lower than claimed, I feel that that might be a little more in line with the CQB indoor style airsoft games. So if it's shot at 450, you may not be able to use this gun in certain airsoft games. Alright, so getting into a few of the cons, there weren't a whole lot. It does have a plastic CO2 tab, but so far I haven't seen really any problems with those breaking. The fact that it's well hidden in the handle keeps it out of harm's way, so you should be fine with that. Now, I have had people that use their guns fairly extensively talk about the grips and how they can wear a little bit. It's almost like the finish seems to wear off on the nub area of the grips. You know, a little bit of plastic paint or even rubberized paint may go a long way with fixing that if that's a problem you encounter with yours. And again, there's the red tip that comes with the US version, so for my US customers, that's a bit of a con, but there's nothing really we can do about that. That's just the way it is. Alright, so thanks again for watching another Replica Airguns Airsoft tabletop review. Don't forget to subscribe before you go. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Username is Replica Airguns. Again, I've done several reviews on the BB or the 4.5mm steel BB versions for these pistols, so check out the links in the description and the annotations that I've put in the video here for you. We also have them for sale. Almost all the versions, the BB and the Airsoft versions, in both our Canada and US stores, so check that out at our ReplicaAirguns.com website and web store. Again, we have our Canada and US stores there for you. And make sure to come down to the Replica Airguns website and check out the written articles and related reviews and posts there. I'll usually include some additional photos, some nice high-resolution photos for you, and sometimes some other information that may have been missed or left out in the videos themselves. So thanks for watching another Replica Airguns video. Until next time, take care.